5 acres of land, a house you can actually use, and an asking price below $100,000. In many parts of the country, that combination has almost disappeared. In rural Missouri, it still shows up from time to time, but the number on the listing page is only the beginning of the story. A low price can hide a long drive, an aging roof, difficult terrain, a questionable well, or a renovation bill that changes the entire deal. The 10 properties in this roundup were selected because they were presented with at least 5 acres, an asking price below $100,000 at the time the information was collected, and some form of house or primary structure rather than vacant land alone. That does not mean everyone is move-in ready. It does not mean every acre is useful. And it definitely does not mean every property will qualify for a normal mortgage. What makes Missouri interesting is that the state still has large rural areas where land values, local incomes, and buyer demand are very different from the markets around major cities. A property can look shockingly affordable compared with a suburban home, yet still sit on the market because it is far from hospitals, jobs, shopping, or reliable internet. For a retiree, a remote worker, or someone planning a homestead, that distance may be acceptable. For another buyer, it may be the reason the property is cheap. As we move through the list, pay attention to more than acreage. Look at the shape of the land, the road access, the water source, the septic system, the condition of the main house, and the amount of work required just to maintain the property. One of the homes later in the list offers more land than anything before it, but that extra acreage may be far less useful than it first appears. At number 10 is the simplest kind of rural purchase, a smaller house on just over the 5-acre threshold. This is not the property for someone who wants a large family home or multiple guest rooms. Its appeal is that the building itself may be easier to heat, cool, clean, and repair than a large old farmhouse. For one person, a couple, or a retiree who wants space without taking on an oversized house, that can be a major advantage. 5 acres is enough room for privacy, a large garden, a few chickens, a detached workshop, or simply a buffer from neighboring homes. The smaller floor plan may also mean lower utility costs and fewer rooms sitting unused. The trade-off is flexibility. A buyer would need to verify whether the existing house can be expanded, whether local rules allow additional structures, and whether the land around the home is suitable for building. A small rural house can be inexpensive because there is no easy way to add another bedroom or bathroom. It may also be far enough from town that every grocery trip, medical appointment, or repair call requires planning. This first property makes an important point. A lower maintenance house can be more valuable in daily life than a larger house in worse condition. But the next property turns that equation around, because there, the land may be the real asset and the house may be the project. At number 9, the acreage is more impressive, but the home is older and appears to require a buyer who is comfortable with renovation. This is the kind of property that attracts people who see potential where other buyers see work. The price may feel like a bargain because you are getting a house and land for less than the cost of many city down payments. But the asking price does not include the money needed after closing. Before buying a house like this, the first questions should not be about paint colors or kitchen cabinets. They should be about the roof foundation, electrical service, plumbing, heating system, and water supply. A worn interior can be fixed gradually. Structural movement, a failing septic system, or an unsafe electrical panel can demand immediate cash. For a skilled owner-builder contractor or investor who can do part of the labor, this property could offer a path to creating value. For someone who needs to move in immediately with no major repairs, it could become overwhelming. Rural renovation also has a different rhythm from city renovation. Materials may need to travel farther, specialized contractors may have long wait times, and emergency repairs can cost more because fewer companies serve the area. The land still matters, of course. If it is accessible, reasonably level, and not restricted, It could support a garden, livestock, storage buildings, or recreational use. But a buyer should never assume that every acre shown on a listing is open pasture. Some of it may be wooded steep wet, or separated from the house by a drainage area. At number 8, the feature that immediately changes the character of the property is water. A pond can make a modest rural home feel like a private retreat. It gives the land a focal point, creates a place for wildlife, and may be useful for animals' limited irrigation or recreation. But a pond should be treated as more than a pretty background in listing photos. A buyer would need to verify whether it holds water year-round, whether it lies entirely within the property boundaries, and whether any neighboring land drains into it. The quality of the water matters, and so does the condition of the dam or bank. A pond that looks healthy in spring may shrink dramatically during a dry summer. Flood risk also deserves attention. Low land near a pond or creek may be beautiful until a heavy storm arrives. The house driveway, septic field, and outbuildings should all be checked against available flood information and inspected on the ground. Water can add real value, but it can also create maintenance responsibilities that do not show up in the asking price. For a buyer who wants a peaceful setting, room for ducks or livestock, or simply a view that makes the property feel larger, this could be one of the most emotionally appealing choices. Yet the next home may be more practical for someone who wants to actively use the land, because its most valuable feature is not scenery. It is infrastructure. At number 7 is the property with a barn and existing fencing. For a would-be homesteader, that can be more useful than an extra bedroom or a larger living room. A functional barn can provide feed storage, equipment space, animal shelter, a workshop, or a place to protect tools from Missouri weather. Existing fencing can save months of work and thousands of dollars, especially if the property is intended for goats, horses, chickens, or small livestock. The word existing, however, does not mean usable. A buyer should inspect the barn roof posts, floor wiring, and drainage. Old metal roofing can leak. Wood at ground level can rot. A barn may look solid from the road while still needing major repairs. Fencing also needs to be evaluated section by section. Loose wire-damaged gates and overgrown fence lines can make an apparently ready-to-use property far less ready than it seems. Local rules matter as well. Rural does not automatically mean unrestricted. County regulations, deed restrictions, road agreements, and rules related to animals or additional dwellings should all be verified. The property could be ideal for a small homestead, but only if the intended use is legally allowed and practically supported by water, shelter, and access. After 4 homes, the biggest lesson is already becoming clear: 5 flat. Open acres can be more useful than 15 wooded acres on a steep slope. Acreage is not a single measurement of value. It is only the beginning of the conversation. Think about how you would actually live on the property. Would you rather have more land or a better house? How far are you willing to drive for groceries, medical care, and building supplies? Are you comfortable managing a private well and septic system? And do you have the equipment, time, and physical ability to mow, clear, fence, and maintain the land? Those questions become especially important with number 6, a home located closer to a major road. The advantage is obvious. Access is easier. The route to town may be more direct, and service providers may be more willing to reach the property. For someone who still works in a nearby community, drives frequently, or needs dependable winter access, that convenience can be worth more than complete seclusion. A location near a larger road may also improve the chances of stronger internet or cellular service, though neither should ever be assumed. A remote worker should test the signal at the property, confirm which providers actually serve the address, and ask about installation costs before relying on a listing description. The compromise is noise and privacy. Trucks, headlights, motorcycles, and early morning traffic can change the experience of country living. A house may sit on several acres and still feel exposed if it is close to the road. Buyers with children, pets, horses, or livestock should also consider the safety of the driveway entrance and the distance between the house and passing traffic. This property may be less romantic than the home beside the pond, but it could be far easier to live in every day. That is the recurring tension in affordable rural real estate. The properties that look most isolated and peaceful often require the greatest sacrifice in convenience. At number 5 is the strongest choice for someone who wants to garden seriously. The land appears more open and reasonably level, with sunlight near the house and space that could be organized into vegetable beds, fruit trees, composting areas, and tool storage. A good garden location needs more than empty ground. The buyer should examine soil texture, drainage, sun exposure, and access to water. Missouri weather can bring heavy rain, summer heat, and periods of drought. A garden placed too far from the water source becomes difficult to maintain. A low area may stay wet after storms. A beautiful open field may have thin soil, heavy clay, or a history that limits what grows easily. Wildlife is another practical concern. Deer, rabbits, raccoons, and other animals can turn a productive garden into a nightly buffet. Fencing, netting, and secure storage may be necessary. The cost is manageable on a small scale, but it should still be included in the plan. For a retiree who enjoys gardening, a family that wants to grow part of its food, or a beginner homesteader who does not need a large livestock operation, this property may offer the best balance so far. The house does not have to be spectacular if the daily outdoor space works well. Still, a buyer should verify where the septic field is located before planning permanent gardens, orchards, or outbuildings. Number 4 is the home that looks more expensive than its price. This is the natural thumbnail candidate. An attractive front elevation, a broad lawn, a clear view of the house, and enough surrounding land to make the property feel private. From the outside, it creates the reaction every affordable home buyer wants to have. There is no way this costs less than $100,000. That visual appeal is exactly why the asking price deserves closer examination. When a house presents well from the road but remains inexpensive, the reason may have little to do with the front facade. It could be located far from a strong job market. The interior may be dated. The heating, cooling, plumbing, or electrical systems may be near the end of their useful life. The local buyer pool may simply be small. A slower market does not necessarily mean the house is defective. In many rural areas, there are fewer buyers who want the lifestyle, fewer lenders willing to finance unusual properties, and fewer comparable sales to support an appraisal. A home can be attractive and still take longer to sell, because the location narrows the audience. This could be the best choice for someone who wants a property that already feels like a home rather than a construction site. But curb appeal should never replace an inspection. A fresh exterior, tidy yard, or wide porch cannot reveal the condition of the crawl space, roof decking, well pump, septic tank, or insurance history. At number 3 is the lowest priced home in the group. It still comes with at least 5 acres, which makes the price feel almost unreal. This is where buyers are most likely to focus on the possibility and underestimate the conditions attached to the sale. A very low-priced rural property may be offered as is. It may require cash. It may not qualify for conventional FHA, USDA, or VA financing because of its condition. Utilities may be disconnected. The house may need repairs before an insurer will issue a standard policy. None of those possibilities should be assumed without evidence, but every one of them should be investigated before making an offer. The listing boundaries and included structures also need careful review. Photos can create the impression that every barn, shed, or outbuilding belongs to the property, but the legal description controls what is actually being sold. A survey may reveal shared drives easements, uncertain fence lines, or structures that cross a boundary. This is the home that best illustrates a rule buyers should remember: the listing price is only the entrance fee. The real cost begins when the keys change hands. If the property needs a roof, septic work, electrical upgrades, a new water system, and basic interior repairs, the total investment can climb quickly. For a cash buyer with renovation experience, the low entry price may still create an opportunity. For someone using every available dollar just to purchase the property, it may be the riskiest home on the list. At number 2 is the option that may work best for retirement. The house is more manageable. The layout is primarily one level, and the access appears less demanding than some of the more isolated properties. Those details matter more with age than many buyers expect. A long gravel drive can be charming until it needs grading, snow removal, or emergency access. A two-story house can feel spacious until stairs become difficult. Large barns and open fields can look beautiful until the maintenance becomes a weekly obligation. Retirement property should support the life someone wants to live 10 years from now, not just the life they can manage today. This home offers enough land for privacy, gardening, a small workshop, or a few animals, without requiring the buyer to use every acre intensively. The compromise is that some of the acreage may be more recreational than productive. Mowing equipment, brush control, tree maintenance, and driveway upkeep still cost money, even when the land is not being farmed. Distance to healthcare is one of the most important items to verify. A quiet, rural setting may be comfortable for everyday living, but the nearest emergency room, pharmacy, grocery store, and medical specialist may be much farther away than expected. Retirees should drive those routes, not simply measure them on a map. For the right buyer, this could be the most sensible property in the entire group. It may not have the most dramatic barn, the prettiest pond, or the largest acreage, but it appears to offer a more realistic balance between independence and convenience. And then we reach number 1, the property with the most land available under the $100,000 ceiling. This is the listing that creates the biggest dream privacy room to hunt space for a homestead, and enough distance from neighbors to feel truly removed from city life. More acreage creates possibilities, but it also magnifies every weakness. If much of the property is wooded, steep, rocky, or difficult to reach, the usable area may be far smaller than the headline number suggests. Forest can be valuable for recreation, wildlife, timber, and privacy, but it does not automatically provide pasture, garden space, or easy building sites. Access is another major question. A long private drive can require gravel drainage work, brush clearing, and regular maintenance. If the road crosses another property or depends on an easement, the legal rights and responsibilities should be understood before purchase. During heavy rain or winter weather, a remote drive can become the difference between peaceful seclusion and practical isolation. The house itself still has potential, but this is not the property for someone who wants a simple, low-maintenance move. Outbuildings, fencing, trails, trees, drainage, and the main structure may all require attention. Insurance and financing can also become more complicated when the home is in poor condition, far from a fire department, or combined with unusual land features. For a buyer who values privacy above convenience, has the equipment to maintain land, and understands rural systems, this may be the strongest opportunity. For someone who wants easy access to shopping, medical care, reliable services, and a house that needs little work, it may be the worst fit on the list. So what is the catch with Missouri homes offering 5 or more acres for less than $100,000? Usually, there is not one single catch. There is a collection of trade-offs. The first is location. Rural areas have fewer buyers, fewer nearby employers, and longer drives to basic services. That reduces demand and keeps prices lower. The second is condition. Affordable houses often include deferred maintenance. A roof, foundation, HVAC system, electrical panel, plumbing system, well or septic tank can turn an inexpensive purchase into an expensive project. The third is land quality. Acreage may include hills, woods, wet areas, poor soil, flood-prone ground, or sections that are difficult to access. 5 useful acres can outperform 20 difficult ones. The fourth is infrastructure. Internet, cellular service, road maintenance, trash pickup, emergency response, and utility access may be limited. A buyer should verify each service at the specific address rather than assuming it is available. The fifth is financing and insurance. Some rural homes do not meet normal loan requirements. Others may be expensive to insure because of condition, distance from fire protection, or replacement cost. A low asking price does not guarantee a low monthly ownership cost. And finally, resale can be slow. The same limited demand that allows someone to buy cheaply may make it harder to sell later. A rural property should be purchased primarily because it fits the buyer's life, not because the buyer assumes it will appreciate quickly. Homes with 5 or more acres below $100,000 can still exist in Missouri. But acreage alone does not make a property valuable, and a low price alone does not make it affordable. The best purchase is the one that matches the buyer's goals, repair skills, health, work situation, and long-term budget. Would you choose the best house with the least land or the most land with the biggest renovation risk? Share your choice in the comments. Subscribe for more affordable homes, farmhouses, and rural properties across America.